Hi, y'all. This is Wendy, and I am answering the testimony challenge put out by Pastor Heath at First Baptist Church, Redding, California. So I thought, why not um, go ahead and put out why I became a follower of Jesus Christ? So here goes. Before Christ, I was married and I had children, but my life on the inside was incomplete. And although it looked like I had everything on the outside, inside I was depressed and angry. And because of some of the life choices that I had made, um, it had really wreaked havoc with my heart and my soul. And one of the problems that I had was that I couldn't make wise decisions. Everything that I chose to do only added to the anger and the depression and the torture and the shame that I felt inside, and particularly the loneliness. Um, and most importantly, the the thing that really defined me was I hated God. It wasn't a question of whether or not God existed. For me, that wasn't the unanswerable. For me, it was the fact that I just couldn't stand him because of the choices that I had made that I had blamed on him, in feeling like he had let me down and hadn't given me what I wanted. And the truth is, I didn't have a relationship with God, but I blamed him for everything. I remember one time I was really depressed, and I had gone to see my mother, and I had shared my feelings with my mom, and she made the statement, "You need church." And for us down south, church and God are synonymous. And so I thought about that for a second, and then I said, you know what? No, I've done too much. I'm so hard inside. God can't help me. I've just done too much, and I've seen too much, and felt so much anger towards him. God couldn't help me. And it was as if I had thrown down the gauntlet and God had chosen to pick it up, and I was unaware of it. So after that conversation, I began to have a desire from somewhere inside to seek out God. And it didn't come from me. I knew I was sad and depressed. I didn't know how to fix it, but there was this desire to suddenly know Him. And so I went to the store and I bought as many self help books as I could. I went to churches, but I would sit out in the parking lot and just sit in my car and cry because I was too ashamed to go inside. I met some Christian people who, um, I wanted what they had, this peace and this joy, but I wasn't able to discern how or why they had that. And then I discovered a gentleman on the radio by the name of J. Vernon McGee. And at 12 o'clock every day, I would listen to him explain the Bible. So I decided to get a Bible too. And I didn't understand really anything of what he was teaching. I just understood that there was a God and that God loved me. But in the midst of that and trying to search out for God, I just couldn't find peace. And I couldn't find Him. He was elusive. And I couldn't figure it out because I'd been studying, but I didn't understand it. So, one of the things I started doing was waking up early in the morning, and I would go outside before my family woke up, and it was about 5 in the morning, and I would start reading in the book of John. And I remember when I got to John 14, chapter 14, um, I read through the chapter and went to move forward and go to John 15, and I couldn't. There was something in me saying, go back. And for weeks, I read the same chapter over and over and didn't understand it. But there were two verses in there in John 14. The first one was, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." And that was Jesus speaking. And it was my introduction to Jesus. Believe in believe in Jesus. Why? And then the second was this: "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." And I didn't get it. I I had no one to explain it to me. I was too ashamed to go to anyone at church and admit that I didn't know what it meant. So I just continued reading it and reading it and reading it and being more and more stumped and not being able to find peace with God. It was really eating at me inside. At one point, I understood sin and that I had done things against God in my life. I had been rebellious against Him. And there was an understanding of that. And so I prayed and I asked God, I said, "God, please forgive me for my sins. I want peace between you and I. And so I'm willing here. I'm here. I want you to forgive me of sins. But I don't understand why I have to come through Jesus to get to you." So I tried to go around Christ and make my way to God by asking Him to forgive my sins, but I didn't really want anything to do with the whole Jesus aspect. I didn't understand or comprehend it. And I asked God, I said, "What does He have to do with you and I? Because I'm trying to straighten things out between you and I." Um, that went on for a couple of years. And all I received from God was silence. And He was telling me how to come to Him through His Word, through Jesus. I wasn't getting it, and I was being stubborn. And then one night, I had a dream. And in this dream, I was in a dark room, and there was a door. And suddenly the lights went on, and there were all these people in the room. A lot of people formed in a circle, and through the door came Jesus. And He walked into the room, and the joy and the love and the peace that flowed into the room, it was phenomenal. And Jesus began going around to each person in the room. He finally got to me, and whereas He was so with everyone else, He was smiling and laughing, and He came to me and He looked at me, and He was just dead serious. And He looked at me and He said, "Come, follow me." And I went to step forward and then realized that I couldn't, because that meant I'd have to give up control of my life. I would actually have to give my life to Him. And I thought, no, I can't. So I stepped backwards. Jesus went around the room again, speaking to everyone, and He came to me a second time. And when He did, I thought He would have something profound and something easier for me to do besides follow Him, because that was a bridge too far. And He looked me in the eyes and He said, "Come, follow me." And I refused to budge. And He walked around the room one more time. The third time, it was the same message: "Come, follow me." And then He walked over to the door, walked through the door, and the door slammed. And I just remember feeling that I had just allowed the most precious thing in the world slip through my fingers. And I knew I had a decision to make. And I knew that the condition of my heart, not only did I have sin, but I was not willing to give my life over to Christ, to believe that He could take those sins away, and that He was the way, the truth, and the life. And there was no way I could get to God except through Him. So I woke up from that dream, and I had a lot of praying and a lot of thinking to do. And one of the things that was hindering me from coming to Christ was I was fearful of losing my marriage because my husband had made it clear, um, although I loved him and he loved me, that this whole church thing and this whole following God thing and stuff was not for him. And I was very fearful of losing him. But it came down to me having to make the decision that God was everything and that I would have to give up my life, my ways, um, my making my own decisions, which had just led me down one sad path to another. I was going to have to give it all over to God, and I was going to have to follow Jesus with everything. So I did. After several weeks, I prayed and I told Jesus that I would follow him no matter what happened, no matter what the consequences were, that I was his, and I believed in him. I didn't have a full understanding of all the doctrinal issues of what took place at that time, but what I did know was this, was that I was separated from God and I had no peace, that I had sin in my life that was keeping me from God. And the only way to have peace with God was to come to him through Jesus Christ, whom God sent to die on the cross and take away my sins. I understood that much. But then I knew God was also asking me to follow his son. I had to do that. I had to be obedient and pick up my own cross and follow after Jesus. And that was the point when I gave my life to Christ. And now I have a peace with God that surpasses all understanding. Instead of that depression and sadness and anger, I am filled with his joy and his peace. I have a Father that I can speak to at any time. There's nothing blocking the way. It's all because Jesus made that way for me. And so I gladly serve him. I gladly pick up my cross. I gladly give my life to him. I have peace through Jesus Christ with God. And you can have that peace too. I've told you my testimony. At the end of this video, I am going to put a link down about the gospel message from Pastor Heath, and he goes through a 30-minute video where he explains the gospel message much better than I've done here. If you would please, if you don't have peace with God and you want to know how you can have that peace, how you can have a relationship with him, please click on that link, and or leave a comment below on this YouTube page. Um, you know, if you need him, you need him, and we all need him. I needed him, and I continue to need him today. He's here. He is wanting a relationship with all of us. And it's about more than just doing the right thing. This is about giving a life to Christ, who gave his life for you. So, God bless you. Peace and grace to you. And yeah, I hope you'll make the right decision. God bless.